Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents Shared, a reverse harem romance by Krista Wolfe. Narrated by Melissa Barr and Tristan James. 1. Claudia. Shit! I stared up in horror as the can of paint fell. It slipped from the ladder in slow motion, rotating end over end as a big swath of the pale blue color, the one I'd taken more than an hour to pick out, licked forth like a giant tongue. Shit! I jumped back, twisting to get out of the way. The can hit the floor in an explosion of blue, just as I realized my right foot felt, well, wet. I just stepped in the roller tray for the white paint, too. Shit, 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 shit! The burst of sudden laughter from behind me was the last thing I expected to hear. It caused me to whirl, whipping another thin line from the overloaded brush in my hand. Paint splattered over 2 more walls, which of course just happened to be the ones I'd already painted. I opened my mouth. Shit, a deep but cheerful voice suggested. There was more laughter, this time accompanied by a bright smile. Sorry, that's just a lot of shit. The stranger standing in my doorway was as tall as he was broad. His big shoulders ended where his sleeves did, revealing 2 very tan and well-developed arms that were holding a large box. He glanced down curiously. Why are you barefoot? I'd taken my shoes off to spare them the mess. Now I had paint all over my foot, my shorts, my shirt, my arms and legs, everywhere but the wall where it needed to be, apparently. Who the hell are you? He bent at the knees, setting the box on the floor without breaking his smile. I'm Brandon, he said, reaching out one hand. When I didn't shake it right away, he lowered it to his side. I'm here for my room. I was totally dumbfounded. Your room? Yes. I couldn't help but snicker, even as I stepped out of the paint tray. Well, I think you've got the wrong house, Brandon. You sure? Look around. The real question is, are you sure? Brandon's eyes moved slowly around the interior of the old Victorian house. He reached behind him and pulled a piece of paper from his pocket. It was a very nice pocket, attached to a very nice ass. That part I tried not to notice, but it was a little difficult. 430 Blindenberg, he read. That's here, right? Maybe. The old Delta Taw house? Yeah, I admitted slowly. A long time ago, maybe. My eyes narrowed. And? Well, that's it then, he said, holding out the piece of paper. This is the place. I've been assigned here for the rest of the semester. I sighed and swiped the paper from his hand. Our fingers touched, and I left him unapologetically with a fresh line of blue paint. What is this? I said, reading the document. Dean's orders, Brandon shrugged. Our chapter got closed down over the break, and we were told to come here. Chapter. Closed down. Mentally, I snapped my fingers. Of course. Ah, I said, you're from Omega Alpha. Yup. Shut down for alcohol hazing. Disbanded. Thrown off campus. Yes, and yes, Brandon said, but also no. We got railroaded. We didn't haze anyone. I reached for the towel I was using as a paint rag. That's not what I read. That kid you read about got drunk at some other party, he said defensively. He passed out on our lawn and we called him an ambulance. That kid was a freshman, with more alcohol in his system than the town drunk tank. He nearly died. Again, Brandon reiterated, not us. I sighed as I wiped my hands clean. I sure wasn't there to argue with him. I wasn't there to babysit him either. Well, Brandon, it seems somebody's made a mistake. You can't live here because the house isn't ready, not even close. Why not? Because I'm still fixing it up, and the university gave me another 6 months to finish the job. He looked confused as I handed the paper back to him. You? A girl? Yeah, I laughed. Me. A girl. I used a single finger to tap my tits playfully. See? He blushed and nodded, folded the paper back into his pocket. Go tell them you need another place. In fact, tell them they... I stopped dead as another 2 guys walked up behind him. 2 boys, really. College students, like Brandon, maybe 20 or 21. Hi, one of them said. He was equally as tall, with soft blonde hair that framed a very handsome face. "I'm Colin, and this asshole next to me is Hunter." Hunter elbowed him so hard he almost dropped his box. "We're here for our rooms." My eyes found Brandon's again, and he gave me an apologetic shrug. "Well, shit," I said. 2. Claudia. The guys stared at me for a long while, like they were witnessing the creation of some paint-splattered goddess. It was Colin who eventually put down his own boxes to help clean up the mess. "Thanks," I said, tossing him a clean rag. "No problem." I explained to them how I'd been tasked with fixing up the place and how I'd only just begun. I left out the money part. As an adjunct professor, my salary wasn't much, so I took whatever extra hours I could. Not only was this some good supplemental income, it also kept me out of my own house for as long as I wanted. Out of the house and away from Garrett.
"So, you're the one fixing up the old DTT house, huh?"
Hunter circled the foyer, being careful not to track through any of the spilled paint. There was a definite swagger in his step. His walk was cocky, if not outright arrogant. "Cleaning and painting more than fixing it," I admitted. "But yeah, that's me." I didn't know much about repairs, but I could certainly paint and decorate. And thanks to my neurotic grandmother, I could clean circles around just about anybody.
"And you just started, right?"
"Yep."
"Good. Then you don't mind me saying it looks like shit."
His attitude amused me more than offended me. In the 6 years I'd been teaching, I learned to grow a thicker skin. "It looks like shit," I replied, "because it's been pretty much abandoned since the 1980s. All the more reason you guys can't live here." Brandon and Colin exchanged concerned looks. Hunter only folded his arms.
"And why not?"
I sighed in frustration. It was getting later by the minute. I was losing the natural light, and I hadn't gotten even half of what I wanted done today.
"Is the electricity on?"
Hunter asked. I reached out and flicked on the light switch. The antique chandelier that dominated the upper foyer lit up, even with half the bulbs missing.
"Good. What about heat? Gas?"
"Yes and yes," I said, "but—"
"So what's the problem?"
He was smirking at me now, looking down at me with two thick forearms folded across a very sculpted chest. Hunter's dark goatee matched his black tattoos. My eyes were drawn to them. "Look, the place is a wreck," I said. "There's no cable, no internet, every room is full of dust and debris." I was a sucker for tattoos, always had been. "Only half the furniture is salvageable," I went on. "I still have to get a dumpster, carry all this crap out of here, and then—"
"What if we helped you?"
Brandon offered suddenly. I blinked and turned to look at him. His expression was genuine. "And why would you do that?"
"Because this is the third place we've been sent," said Colin, "and you're kinda our last resort."
I still didn't understand. "What do you mean, last resort?" He shrugged, and his blonde mop shrugged with him.
"The dean said this might or might not be ready," Colin acknowledged. "And if you turn us away, we'll have to find off-campus housing, which will suck because it's expensive. And which will double suck," Hunter added, "because by now most of it is already taken."
My first instinct was to shake my head, but something stopped me. I found myself putting my hands on my hips. "You'd really live here?" I asked. They nodded in unison. Hunter seemed somewhat detached, but I could see pleading in the other's eyes. "And you'd help out?" 3 helpers, I thought to myself. 3 very big, very strong helpers. I imagined all the work I could get done, all the money I could save, money the university had already allotted to me for cleanup and repairs. "All right," I sighed. "If you're willing to live here, I'm willing to work around you. And with you, now that you've all agreed to help out." In a way, it was perfect. Not only would I get the house ready 3 times faster, I'd also have some company. It had been lonely so far, working all these extra hours by myself. And at night? Well, at night the place could be downright creepy. "Fine," I said, pointing up the staircase. "Each of you can take a spare bedroom. Leave the master, though. I've been piling all the extra stuff in there temporarily. We'll clean that one out last." Brandon's face lit up instantly. "Yes," he exclaimed. Grabbing his box, he sprinted up the stairs. Colin smiled and extended a hand.
"Thanks so much."
He paused, and his eyebrows knit together.
"Claudia,"
"Claudia," I said, putting out my own. Claudia, he repeated, shaking it happily, paint and all. You're really saving our asses here. His touch was warm and welcoming. It sent a little jolt of electricity up my arm. Someone's gotta save those asses, I thought wickedly, watching them from behind as they headed up the stairs. Reaching for the brush again, I tried pushing those thoughts away.
3. Colin. "Did you see her?" Brandon whispered as we reached the upstairs landing. "She's perfect." Hunter pushed past us, peering into each bedroom as he walked by. He'd take the best one for himself, I knew. That's how it had always been, back when he'd been president of our fraternity house, and even before. "Leave her alone," I warned. "She's off limits." "Really? And who decided that?" "We did," I snapped. "The moment we decided to move in here." Staring back at him, I could tell my friend still didn't get it. Maybe he never would. To Brandon, the university's latest in a string of football prodigies, restraint simply wasn't in his vocabulary. "Look, you don't shit where you eat," I explained. "All one of us has to do is piss her off, and then we're out on our asses again. It'll be just like Omega Alpha." Omega Alpha. It was still a sore subject between the three of us. We'd made a pact not to talk about it, at least not until the semester ended, and the semester's end was nowhere in sight. "Hey, I'm not looking to piss her off," Brandon replied. "Just the opposite. I'm looking to show her some fun, make her happy, get her all hot and bothered and into you," I finished for him, "and then toss her away for the first cheerleader who throws a pom-pom your way? No, it's not like that." "It's exactly like that," I countered. "You don't think, Brandon, or rather, you think with the wrong head." Up ahead I saw Hunter disappear into one of the rooms on the left. Apparently, he'd made his decision. "And besides," I pointed out, "you're on academic probation. Every spare minute you're not practicing or working out, you should be studying your face off. You don't have time for a fling or a girlfriend. Hell, you don't even have time to jerk off." My friend lowered his head guiltily. He knew I was right. "If you don't get your grades up, you're off the team," I explained. "And if you're off the team, you lose your scholarship. And if you lose your scholarship—" "I'm out," Brandon said glumly. "Exactly." There was an awkward pause as we stood in the narrow corridor, which was growing darker with the setting sun. I reached for the light switch. The single bulb in the upstairs hallway was so covered with dust it felt like it was on a dimmer. "You're right, of course," Brandon said finally. "You're always right. It's just that she's such a cute girl, and I guess I got carried away." "She's not cute," I wanted to say. "She's beautiful, wildly beautiful, and she's a woman, not a girl." In truth, I'd seen those things the moment I walked through the house's big old antique door. Claudia was exactly the type of girl I'd go for. Auburn hair, porcelain skin, curvy and beautiful with full breasts and smooth, voluptuous thighs. Just like Holly. I pressed my lips together sourly. No matter what I tried to distract myself from the breakup, my thoughts always floated back to my ex-girlfriend. Holly, my high school sweetheart, the girl who'd agreed to marry me, even if it was through the simple pledge of a cheesy promise ring. Holly, the girl who'd cheated on me with my friend, and not just any friend, but my best friend. Fuck you, Derek. It was about as screwed up a situation as screwed up situations got. It had taken me 2 long years at community college before finally being accepted here, and now here I was, thousands of miles from home, trying to forget that Holly and Derek were still back in our hometown, living together. A familiar nausea began in the pit of my stomach. I could see the two of them now, clear as day, probably doing all the same things we used to do, going all the same places we used to. "This place sure needs a ton of work," Brandon said, wiping one big finger along the wall. It came back absolutely covered in grime. Yeah, totally, I agreed. I found myself rubbing my temples, trying to shake away thoughts of not one, but now 2 women. Think maybe you got us in a little over our heads? Nah, we can whip this place into shape in no time, maybe even make it as great as it once was. Brandon grabbed the doorknob to the nearest bedroom. When it broke off in his hand, he let out a nervous laugh. Or at least, as close to the old legends I've heard about Delta Delta Ta, he grinned sheepishly. You're a fucking barbarian, I quipped. You know that? Brandon flashed his trademark boyish grin. He tried handing the doorknob off to me, but I pushed it back into his hand. No way, bro, I smirked. That's your room now.
4. Claudia. My ride back to campus the next day was filled with conflicting thoughts, as was my half-night sleep, during which I kept tossing and turning and hoping I'd made the right decision. On one hand, I'd done the right thing. I'd helped the guys out and given them a place to stay on campus. And being that I was a professor on that campus, wasn't helping students what teaching was all about? Yes, I'd convinced myself, it certainly was. On the other hand, I also felt like I'd taken advantage. The university had already given me a healthy stipend to repair, replace, and redecorate the ancient frat-house. Rather than use that money to hire a cleaning crew, I was now sort of getting the proverbial milk for free. Hey, the little voice in my head reasoned, they offered first. Besides, I didn't even know if they'd follow through on their promise to do anything at all. They could move in all their stuff, laugh in my face, and refuse to do jack shit. In all likelihood, I couldn't even evict them. I'd be stuck. Damn, I grunted, clenching the steering wheel. That had better not happen. Talking to myself during my commute was my favorite time of the day. I got to speak my mind without being shot down by Garrett or questioned by any one of 100 students. It was the purest form of free thought. I finished breakfast, a dry, crunchy granola bar, and turned through the university's entrance. 2 huge rows of elms lined the main avenue. Students milled back and forth, moving like colorful ants from quad to quad. Classes were in full swing. The chill of fall was a crisp snap in the October air.
You fix up a house?
I could still hear Garrett's hollow laughter, taste the cynicism dripping from his smarmy, know-it-all voice.
What the hell do you know about repairing anything?
It was stupid of me to even tell him. Nearly as stupid as living with your ex-husband almost a year after getting divorced. Just thinking about the whole situation made me grip the steering wheel even tighter. We'd separated, split up, divorced, and yet there I was, still in the home we'd made together. Only it wasn't a home anymore. It was more like a prison. Just one of the many reasons I'd taken this side project, so I could spend as much time as possible not getting into it with him.
You barely fix anything around here,
he laughed.
Look at this place. It's going to hell in a handbasket.
Hell in a handbasket. Of all the overused phrases he regurgitated several times each week, this had to be one of the worst. That's probably because I hate this place, I told him. He'd scoffed at me for that.
You used to love it.
Not anymore. We'd been together 5 years, married for 3. As far as I knew, everything had been going great. We'd bought a house, adopted a dog, even talked about having kids. Then, over dinner one night, Garrett simply announced he wasn't in love with me anymore.
I'm sorry, he said. That's just how I feel.
It was like getting punched in the gut. Hard. The best part was that in the very next breath, my not-so-loving husband also told me he wanted to see other people. Effective immediately, apparently upon completion of dessert. So you're fucking someone else, I remember snarling. Obviously. He denied it, of course, but I knew he was, and the more I pressed, the less he tried to hide it. First there was Debbie, the girl he worked with. After that came Melissa, followed by some other tramp I never got a name for, and then finally his current girlfriend, Chastity. Yes, that's right, Chastity. You really couldn't make this shit up. At first, I tried throwing him out, but he flat out refused. He wasn't leaving his house no matter how much we didn't get along anymore. We slept in separate bedrooms while the details were worked out, and the details went quickly since we had no assets, no children. But the more we lived together while being apart, the more furious I became, and the more I hated being around him.
"You can always leave," he'd tell me with a shrug. "You don't really like this place anyway."
I was immediately defiant whenever he made the suggestion, as if in leaving I was somehow surrendering something, losing even though there was nothing left to lose. Besides, I just couldn't afford a place of my own, not as an adjunct, not until I got hired full-time. But maybe, after saving all the extra money I was getting paid for renovations. I turned into the driveway of the old frat house and instantly stopped short. A huge metal container took up most of the driveway. It was already half filled with garbage. I was totally speechless as I parked my car along the curb and made my way across the overgrown front lawn. "Who ordered the dumpster?" I asked incredulously.
"I did."
I turned to my left, and there was Hunter. He was dressed in a pair of torn jeans and a tight white t-shirt. Or at least it used to be white. Right now it was covered, along with his face and arms, in a powdery layer of what looked to be sheetrock dust.
Well, thanks." "No need to thank me," he said. "The house needed it. Besides, my uncle's still billing you for it. He runs a construction company not far from here."
"Oh."
"I got you a discount, though," he added. "Friends and family, that sort of thing."
I nodded appreciatively. "Very cool of you."
"Like I said, the house needed it."
We both turned as Colin and Brandon walked out of the open front door. Colin had a bag of garbage dangling from each hand. Brandon, however, was carrying something much, much bigger.
"What the hell is this thing anyway?" he asked.
"Looks like the bigger half of an entertainment center," I offered. It was enormous, much like him. As we watched, Brandon walked straight to the edge of the metal dumpster and heaved the thing over the side. It hit the bottom with a resounding clang, shattering like driftwood and sending up a big cloud of swirling dust. Should you really be carrying that on your shoulder?" I asked hesitantly.
"No,"
Hunter jumped in.
"No, he really shouldn't."
"But,
dude, no buts," cried Hunter. "You're on a football scholarship, remember? Imagine you tore your shoulder just now over some stupid entertainment center 3 decades old."
Now that he wasn't carrying anything, I could see Brandon more clearly. And the first thing I couldn't help but notice about him was that he was shirtless. Oh my God. The man standing next to the dumpster was the perfect picture of an Adonis. His chest was so big and well-defined he looked like an action hero. His arms so ripped with muscle they seemed almost fake. Brandon stood there for a moment, his body barely heaving with the exertion of what he'd just done. He reminded me of the statue of some Greek god, like he was sculpted out of marble.
"You're right," he said. "That was stupid." "Damn right it was stupid," Hunter chastised him. "And another thing."
"You're bleeding," I jumped in. I approached him without even thinking. Reaching into my pocket, I pulled out a napkin from lunch and dabbed it against the upper part of one perfectly formed pectoral.
"It's just a scratch," he said, looking down. "No big deal."
His hand closed over my own, swiping the blood away with the napkin. As his skin made contact with mine, I shivered involuntarily.
"From now on, ask for help," Colin said from behind us. "No more of this hero bullshit. If you get hurt and have to leave campus, Hunter and I are screwed. We'll have to split the expenses 2 ways instead of 3.
Hunter scratched at his goatee.
"Speaking of which," he squinted my way, "how much do we owe you for renting this place?"
The question took me off guard, especially since I was still savoring the masculine feel of Brandon's big, calloused hand on mine. Nothing," I finally stammered.
"You don't owe me anything." "Bullshit," said Hunter. "We have to pay you something."
"Not a chance," I said firmly. "You guys are helping me renovate, remember? That's payment enough. The campus is covering the electric, and you guys can split up whatever other utilities you need. Do that, and we're all square." Brandon smiled, his teeth looking impossibly straight and white. Colin, his shirt soaked to his flat stomach by sweat, put his hands on his hips.
"Well, shit," he said, his blue eyes twinkling. "I'm pretty sure we're gonna like you."
5. Hunter. I loved watching her. The way she carried herself, the way her face lit up when she talked, hell, I even liked her smile. But nothing was more attractive to me than her laugh. The kitchen was still a mess, but right now it was warm and clean and well lit. After another few hours of scrubbing things down and tightening some screws here and there was room enough for the four of us to sit down around the old linoleum table and split a pizza. "Thanks for the dinner invite," Claudia smiled, helping herself to a second piece. "You guys really didn't have to." "Well, you looked hungry," Brandon smirked. "And I wouldn't exactly call this dinner." "I am hungry," she said. "Or rather, I was. I haven't eaten since—" "The pieces of granola we caught you picking out of your hair?" Claudia blushed, and she suddenly looked even cuter. She elbowed Brandon just as he got up to hit the fridge again. "One of the many perils of eating on the go," she explained. "That's not eating," Colin countered. He wagged a finger in her direction. "Come by again once we've got everything set up in here. I'll make you a real dinner." She laughed casually, probably not realizing how serious my fraternity brother actually was. Back at Omega Alpha, he'd done more than his fair share of the cooking. He could whip up some mean grub. "Sorry about the appliances," she said, glancing around. "I'll talk to the university's housing department tomorrow. See if there's enough wiggle room in the budget for some new ones." "Even second-hand ones would be an improvement," Brandon nodded. "We could probably sell these on the Antique Roadshow," Colin quipped. "Raise some money." She grinned again, and I knew I was in trouble. There was definitely something about her, something that spoke to me on levels I couldn't quite put my finger on. Shit. She was a genuinely nice person, for one, but she also had a very no-bullshit way about her. In other words, she said what she meant, and she meant what she said. I liked that. Probably a little more than I wanted to admit. And she was beautiful, too. High cheekbones, full lips, and a shrewd intelligence behind her emerald eyes. The whole time she'd been here, she'd listened more than she talked. She asked more questions than she answered. I also noticed she stopped at 2 beers, not 3. She was in control. I liked that, too. Enough already, forget about it. How old was she? 24, 26, not much older than us. And yet it didn't matter how much older she was. She was a professor, and now, apparently, our landlord. Or maybe the university was our landlord, and Claudia was just the super. Whatever. Either way, she was off limits. Colin had realized that right away, and so did I. We'd talked about that first night, after realizing how pretty she was, and after collectively warning Brandon not to go after her, too. Still, after the couple of weeks the three of us just had, looking at something pretty was a pleasant distraction. "So you're all from Omega Alpha?" Claudia was asking. "The three of you?" "Yes," Colin answered, leaning back in his chair. He jerked a thumb at me. "Actually, you're looking at our prez." "Ex-president," I corrected. "Oh yeah, right." Omega Alpha wasn't something I wanted to think about anymore. When the university board's decision came down, I'd fought it tooth and nail, dwelled on it for days. What were we supposed to do? Not call an ambulance? We'd never seen the kid before. He was never even in our house. And yet they were more concerned with appearances than the truth. So they disbanded our chapter anyway. I even begged and pleaded with the kid himself. Maybe he was willing to talk to them, set the record straight. Unfortunately, he was more embarrassed than anything else. So drunk, he didn't even remember where he'd started drinking. Typical freshman bullshit, only he'd taken it way too far. Every time I pressed him, he kept telling me to forget about it. He wanted to put it in the past, and yet he'd wrecked our fraternity. 32 guys. No, brothers. Sent in all different directions, some of them now homeless, like us. I looked around the kitchen. The mood had turned sullen fast. Thankfully, Claudia recognized it quickly enough not to ask any more questions. "Well, I'm glad you guys are here," she said cheerfully. "Thanks for the pizza, but I've really got to be—"
Sample complete. Ready to continue?